It's warm in the polytunnel. I mean warm. Look at that. 21.5 degrees in here at the moment with the door open, and it has been a maximum of 25.9 degrees centigrade this morning. Fantastic. Bit of sunshine. The thaw I think is started, so I'm really hopeful that third time lucky on moving the bricks that have been frozen to the ground and to the nets and everything else. And down here, these large pots full of compost that I was growing my potatoes in. Potatoes are frozen and mushy. I'm gonna sift through those a bit later, but they were solid. They were like lumps of rock, and now, as you can see, they've fallen apart. Look at the bindweed in there. Wicked stuff. So I'm gonna have to be careful when I'm doing that. So that's for in a minute. Let's go and have a look at those bricks and see whether in fact I can move them now. I'm really hopeful. So let's have a look at these nets first. That was stuck. Oh no, it's okay. There's a few I can get apart, I think. And these down here, which were, well, I had to lever them apart, they can be moved now. So that's all good news. I'm looking in here. Well, we've still got a disc of ice on top, but it's loose. So if I think I'm getting to moving these barrels out the way so I can work out what I'm going to do next here, I should be able to tip them over and get the water and the ice out. Note to self, if I'm going to store them upside down so that they don't fill up. Makes perfect sense. So I'm hoping that I can get all of the supports built up today. I've been sort of deliberating whether to do a sandwich like that one with block, bricks and block. I think so, because I think the weight, and there will be one hell of a weight when that's full, is better on a sort of connected surface like the breeze block rather than individual bricks. But I haven't got enough to do that everywhere. I can certainly make a sandwich on that one, and then it's whether to have a breeze block on top and bricks underneath or vice versa. We'll see. Right, let's get on. Mrs. K wants a Swede today, which is a good thing because I'm getting anxious to get this bed with some compost on it. Two of the wrong size gloves, bear with me. It's always best to have them the right way around. Right, yeah, I'd just like to get some compost on this bed. Oh, it is frozen there where it's in the shade. There's no moving that, so I'm gonna have to wait. But I'd quite like to get the few Swedes that are at that end. I can move these because they're in the sun. There we go. Right, yeah, I'd like to get these Swedes out here, and then I can put the compost down this end, and I'm thinking it'll be the last compost that I move from down the bottom, because it will enable me to dig into the surface just around the compost area to get the last couple of barrows. That's the plan. These small ones have got some mighty big holes in them where things have been chewing them, so I'm going to pull the really tiny ones out and leave myself half a bed of Swedes, which I can continue to use. So there's a good group there. We'll decide what we want, and then if I just recover this part of the bed, get the weeds out, I can put my compost on it there. So I'll just move this out of the way. There we go. And I can pile it in there. Right, gonna look at the temperatures of the compost bins now. So when the horses are out in the field, I don't get a supply, which is fine. And that occurs when it's cold and dry. They tend to be out rather than in the stable. As soon as it gets wet, they go in. Right, I'm just gonna, you're not gonna believe this, let me show you. Just look at the worms. These worms have come up from the soil base, which must be, what, 4.5 feet down below, and worked their way to the surface. Absolutely incredible. Just shows you how the compost tends to work. Got a funny stain on the top of my thermometer, just clean that off. What are we at? We are at 82 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees centigrade. So still good. Right, let's cover that one up. I think I put another thermometer in a bit further down. Let's get these down. There we go. Pull this one over. I'm not sure where I put it. Did I put it under there? Yes, I did. And same weird stain on it, which I guess is coming from the flies. That's showing 20 degrees. Yeah, 20 degrees centigrade, 70 degrees Fahrenheit, there or thereabouts. So all of them are nicely warming. So that's good to see. Right. Let's take a look at this compost down here. I need myself a fork. Right, got a spade instead. Right, let's get down here and just look at this last bit of compost on the floor and see whether it's soft enough for me to work with. Yeah, I think it is. There's just about 2 inches here, which is really good stuff. And I'd quite like to fill a barrow or 2 up for that last bed, and that'll be compost done for this season. Okay, go and get my wheelbarrow and load up. I'm rather hoping that Adrian will be my allotment neighbour today because, well, I'd like to get those tanks on top of the supports when I've finished to see what they look like, and I definitely can't lift them myself. So I haven't seen him for the last couple of visits. Hope he's well, but it would be helpful. Right, it's coming off in sort of onion layers, this, which is fine because it just means I'm getting the top surface, which I know is just my compost. Right, I'm going to carry on with that, fill that barrow up. Right, we've got one dandelion in here and a few little bits of grass. Other than that, it's weed free and I can put the compost straight on the top. There is a crust of about 2 centimeters or 1 inch on top of this bed, which is frozen, but it's not going to stop me, I don't think. Right, there we are. Nothing tucked under there, is there? There is a Swede, but I'm not going to worry about that. Oh, there's some grass here. A bit harder under the shade of the net, but that's the bulk of it. And I'm just going to put the compost on the top, and I won't spread it until the rest of this is ready to pull. There's a few bits of grass which I think I'm going to remove while I'm weeding around the Swede. Right, let's get on. So this compost that I've pulled up from the floor does have some risks. The main one being sycamore seeds, which definitely will be in the surface. In fact, I can see them. But they are the easiest things to pull out. They're quite slow growing and quite thick. So when it comes to them showing their head, I'll get them out of there very simply. So I'm not worried about them. Right, let's get this on. I think one more of these, and this bed, which is already pretty much full to the edge with compost, we'll be ready to go. Get rid of that bit of wood. Right. That's it. Compost movement for this season is over. I can tell you what, it feels good because it really is quite an effort moving this compost. The weight of it at this time of year is pretty heavy. And the good thing is, with the compost bins resited, I'll never have to move those sort of distances again. Fantastic. And that will be more than enough for that bed over the coming weeks. I will get to spread that. The ice will melt. It'll condense a bit because there's lots of air gaps in that, but yeah, feels good. Okay, on to the next thing. I tell you what, I think my wheelbarrow's had it. Let me show you. It's got a glorious hole in it, and another one starting there. So, well, I've had them a few years. As they say, they don't make them like they used to. But moving soil around, especially if it's a finer soil or compost, then you end up with quite a lot on the floor, which is not ideal. So that one's gonna have to be on my list. I changed the wheel on it. I would definitely keep the wheel, even if I had to part with the rest of the wheelbarrow because of rust. Right, I've been gathering up the required bricks. They're all the best quality bricks I've got, nice and dense, probably fire bricks. And well, I'm gonna play around with this and get these supports in the best configuration I can. And then I will be ready to put the IBC tanks on top, take a look, and who knows, maybe not even move them again. We'll see how level they are. Well, they have never looked more level in all their time on my plot. And it's not perfect. There are, little bits of adjustment required. But I can see very clearly what I need to do. I've put a beam of wood at the back to get that level. And, well, they're touching at the front and probably need to be an inch higher at the back. But just look at that. Fantastic. I think they will do me proud where they are. And most satisfyingly, the watering can goes underneath the tap really easily on both sides. Just checked it. So yeah, delighted with that. And I think I'll just find the appropriate materials just to wedge under in the various places rather than have wood, because wood of course will rotten or get rotten over time. Yeah, fantastic. Who'd think that something so simple would make me so happy, but it does. Right, well, I was thinking I might leave this to another time, but it occurred to me I've got all these really tough half or even third pavers, and they're just about the perfect size. So I think what I'm going to do is see if I can get them under there, get that bit of wood out and get them nice and level. It's going to take some fiddling. I'll put it on quick time. Wow, I'm very pleased with that. They're rock solid now. I've got about half an inch under there. I think I'll find something for that. But they're super level, straight on the front and the back, and plenty of room. They're going to serve me just fine. Right, I think I'm going to move these barrows if I can turn them over, and I'll line them somewhere around the plot just so I can take a view of what I think I'm going to do there. Shouldn't be too big a job really, getting those barrels set up so that they can fill with water. And you may notice there's a hole here, and I think I've got a similar hole on this tank, maybe at the back. No, it's 2 holes in the one. So I think what I'm going to end up doing is taking the overflow from this tank, probably bung that one up, take it from the back, and that will ultimately fill the barrels. And I'm not sure whether to have the barrels all in a line at the back and put my potatoes in front, or just to keep them up one end. But I think clearing everything out and having a good look at it, I'll start to, well, dwell on it and get an idea of what I want to do. Right. Well, that's got all of those moved, and it's made it pretty wet here, although I didn't really intend to do any of this today. I'm just going to move these mats over. Get the ice in here. Beautifully clear though, which is quite impressive. There we go. Be great in a gin and tonic. Right. There we go. So this is the sort of area that I've got to play with, and it's a long way from the IBCs to the tunnel. So it will take some tubing and some pipes, and I've been watching Terry King's Allotment channel based on a lot of your recommendations. So I'm learning a lot, but I'll find a way of getting the water from these tanks overflowing into the barrels and then into the tunnel, and hopefully can gather the water from the shed whenever it sort of appears later on. Okay, well, I think that's me done in this area for today. I do want to spread that compost in the polytunnel and have a look at the potatoes that were frozen, see if there's just any that might have survived. Thought I'd show you these. You see, I do learn. The number of times I've had to empty those just makes perfect sense to keep them upside down. Well, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. I would like to have more of these blue ones. They're quite hard to find. Lots of people have been asking me where I get them, and to be honest, I got them from other people on the plot who gave up their allotments and they became available. So that's one way you can acquire them, but it does take some time. Right, let's get in the tunnel and see what I can do with those mounds of compost. It'll be very interesting to see what they're like. I did find a little bit of bindweed, so I need to be very careful. Okay, I'll speed this up and then we can have a look at the end. Well, as you can see, those bits are still frozen, so they were pretty solid, and there was a lot of just mushy potatoes in there, but I've been able to pick those out real easy. And wow, what's interesting is that once I've got those defrosted, it will have really filled that bed back up at this end. In fact, more than enough. And I don't know, if I find anything else that I can add to this bed, I will, and then ultimately spread it all across, just give it a bit of a clean. It'll be ready for growing this year with plenty of new compost, or at least new spent compost in it. Right, I'm going to swing you around because this is my onions and my peppers, and I've noticed how they dry out in the middle of the day. And you can see the tops of these are dry and dusty, but I've been watering from the bottom and the moisture is in those cells, which is fine, but it certainly needs more. So I'm going to give it a little bit of a dousing just to make sure nothing dries out too much, and then anything that's in the bottom of the tray can also fill the cells through capillary action. So that'll just keep them going for a while. I'm not watering the peppers at all because I don't want them to freeze, and just got to keep an eye on it, make sure those cells don't dry out. It's easy to get things going early, but to forget that they need watering when it warms up. Right, well, I was thinking today what needs to be done next, and of course that area where the barrels are going to be needs looking at, but one of the things I've got to get sorted out is this mess down here. And basically this plastic container, which was broken when I put it together, it was moved from another location. I'm going to really do my best to try and put it back together somehow, brace it, strap it, because when I've put the rest of my nets on and around the plot, which I probably need to do first, I've always got nets that are left over that I've not used, and I feel like it's the best place to store them. And into the bargain, as I empty the shed, there's more and more stuff that I really don't want to put in the polytunnel, and I'm thinking that's probably the best interim move until I get some sort of shed sorted out in the future. Okay, well, I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you did, why not like and subscribe? And if you want to get my updates every Wednesday and every Sunday at 8 PM. I hope you've had a good week. Diolch yn fawr.